Thank you. I recollect that you wanted to share the questions around. There are, however, a few here. I think it would be unfair to ask any of the other panellists. So if I could just put a few questions directly to Madam Premier here. Some of which I think you probably won't like to answer, but I'll give them to you anyway.
As Minister of Finance, I don't have a choice, really.
The Employment Act requires that the pension payments be made. How can this budget now request that the pensions are suspended? Is it legal? I'm sure the answer to that must be yes. And is an actuarial review of the superannuation fund likely to be sufficient to address the issue?
Yes, we have actuarial reviews periodically. And in fact, in terms of sustainability of our pension fund, if we closed down and stopped contributions today, we have probably about, they say, about 14 years of which we can make payouts. But I think certainly you want to, in fact, remember a few years ago, this government, this Minister of Finance took the unprecedented step, and Mr. Manders, who's acting financial secretary, certainly went and spoke to the unions, and we went up and above in terms of requiring contributions be over and above the norm, because we wanted to stabilize the fund and also provide some greater flexibility. I think in terms of an actuarial review, that happens in any way, and in any event, any changes with regard to the pension are always going to be done in accordance with the rule of law. That's what we've done. We've made extraordinary payments in, and we certainly, in terms of suspending our payment, we can do that also, and it's within the framework of the law. And then any necessarily amendments that need to be made as and when required are made. This government operates in transparency. With regard to the private sector, I think you'll note that the comment was on a voluntary basis, and we are now in the budget session, so legislation and legislators work well into the night toiling to make sure all necessary legislation is passed before April 1st.
Thank you. You referenced in the budget announcement a local bond issue. A question here is asked about, do you have a view on the timing that you can share, or the potential rate of interest? There is 8% currently being offered on the government guaranteed Bank of Bermuda, Bank of Butterfield preference shares.
I think the government clearly has to go out by way of tender. We're going to get a good rate, and also with regard to timing, probably before the third quarter.
Thank you. Will payroll tax be reduced?
In your dreams.
Make me laugh today.
Whoever asked that question did get an answer. Under what circumstances, Madam Premier, would you envisage that implementing austerity measures would be the right decision?
I think when we have given businesses a chance to get on their feet, and I think that's when then we can afford to take away the crutch that we're providing to them. So what you want to do right now is stimulate and help to facilitate us getting into a growth mode, and then you can seek to wean people off the dependency. But I think that what you don't want to do is to cause unintended harm and irreparable harm to the economy by further fostering and facilitating negative GDP growth. I can easily make budget look perfect if I went down to $800 million in terms of our current expenditure and let 1,000 workers go. But they would then, you have the social angst, you also have the pressures that will be put on to Minister Blakeney at financial assistance, and also you have less money available in people's pockets, which means there'll be even less spending in terms of retail, restaurants, etc. So you've got to be very careful not to ride and foster further damage, which would be significant to the economy.
Okay, and there's one question which the questioner clearly took the time to type up last night at great length. I'll just give the punchline. Is there a risk that Bermuda is turning into the Greece of the North Atlantic?
I thought I answered something of that nature when I talked about the sustainability of public finances having to be important, and which we considered key. That's why we, as I indicated up front in my opening comments about the fact that how we have cut 120 million and how we're going to be stabilizing our current account expenditure, and that we intend also to get ourselves in a position by 2015-16 where you see a much more favorable position. But I think certainly when you look at Greece and Ireland with about 100% debt to GDP, and Bermuda's about 24, I think we're a long way from that.
Thank you. We have just a couple of minutes before our time is up, so if I could ask Peter and Wayne, in whichever order you prefer, for a couple of closing remarks before we wrap up.
Thank you. When we were talking about growing our economy, growing our business, Wayne was referring to our noisy neighbours down in Cayman. If the 50,000 people living on Grand Cayman were our competition, then I'd be feeling quite comfortable. But unfortunately, they are our competition. But there's probably 200 million people on this planet who want our jobs and who've got the ability to take them from us. Don't forget, we were at the top of the tree. We had the highest per capita income in the world. So even though we're feeling very uncomfortable and times are difficult for many, we still have a far higher standard of living than most people on this planet. The internet, electronics, and data communications has changed the dynamics of financial services. So we used to be a magnet. It all came here for differing reasons, but effectively we were sucking business away from other countries. They now have the ability to put their hand up and keep business in their own country, and then to start to take business back from us. So we have 200 million people we're competing with, and that's why every part of our economy has to be effective and efficient right from the beginning. So we are challenged. There's no point having any divisions. There aren't enough of us to do that. We have to have the best ideas, a clear consensus, and move forward together. Thank you.
I think there has to be a clear emphasis with a harmonious working together with the international business. There needs to be less finger pointing and an opportunity for the brain trust that is the international business and those working in Bermuda to work in conjunction for a better Bermuda. I think that there needs to be a much greater reliance on a symbiotic relationship with ABAC, Business Bermuda, to harness those talents. I think we need to look at the new sources of revenue that I spoke about earlier. We need to get the hotel development, specific things happening in that segment of our economy quite quickly, balance the harmonious development of the immigration policies to benefit Bermuda and then to benefit the marketplace. We need to, as a priority, train young Bermudians to see the opportunities, to see the state of our country, and to implore on them and in them the opportunity to develop themselves properly to take our country forward.
Thank you. Madam Premier, closing remarks?
I think very briefly, this is the 9th budget that I have delivered. And if I can use an analogy for what Bermuda has to do, it's similar to what the Chamber of Commerce did this year. The same old doesn't work anymore. We've got to be much more innovative and creative. And even in terms of budget presentations, perhaps next year you won't even have a Minister of Finance that does it. Perhaps you'll have a Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry. But it is about changing it up. I think this panel discussion and your able moderation helped. And I think that's what Bermuda has to do. And you've got to see, just as you see on this table, that's what you've got to decide you want to see Bermuda to be. A mixture and partnership which is seen as collaborative and cooperative. Even when we disagree, we needn't be disagreeable. Thank you very much.
Okay, before I pass it back to Buddy for his closing remarks, let me just leave you with one final request adding from what Madam Premier said there. We all need to be passionate for change because we do all need to change. We're in a great position and a great country, but change is upon us and we need to react to it. So many people know the words of the most famous tourist Bermuda has. Ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. If I could let you leave with that thought, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Premier, Peter Everson, Wayne Keynes, and Caroline Folger for participating in today's forum. I hope you all enjoyed this forum. Please let them know that. And last but not least, I need to thank PwC for their support, without which this would be very difficult, as every other business is to run, to have. So thank you all again, members, and see you again next year.